For many decades, LGBTQ individuals have been severely underrepresented in historical representations of the Holocaust. Specifically, they have been erased as victims of the Holocaust. It was not until 1985 that the LGBTQ community was mentioned for what they suffered through when they were arguably treated the worst by Nazi soldiers and even other prisoners in concentration camps. Very few survivors have come forward about the inhumane torture and brutal labor that homosexuals were forced to survive through their times in the camps. In the 1920s, the LGBTQ community was thriving in Berlin, Germany. There were well established communities and organizations that held pride events. At this time, Berlin was known as the queer capital of the world. This all ended on May 6, 1933, when Adolf Hitler came to power as Chancellor of Germany. The Nazi Party shut down and raided all the LGBTQ institutions and sought out anyone who threatened their ideals. This was the beginning of LGBTQ people being unfairly punished and not represented for decades to come. The Institute of Sexual Science was an organization that provided thousands, including LGBTQ community members, with counseling, sex education, treatment for STIs, and other sexual health related concerns. This was a place that provided a safe space and a voice for queer people. Magnus Hirschfeld was the head of the Institute for Sexual Science. He studied sexual science and was also a gay man. He was one of the first people to note that homosexuality is not a choice, but rather a character trait that you can be born with. When Hitler came to power, the institute was shut down and raided. The library was burned, and Hirschfeld was nearly beaten to death because of his opinions and work about homosexuality. Life before the rise of the Nazi regime and Adolf Hitler for LGBTQ people was a lot simpler. There were laws against homosexual relations, but they were hardly enforced. People of all sexual and gender identities could be free and did not have to hide their true selves. The law that banned homosexuality was called Paragraph 175 of the German Criminal Code. Before the Holocaust, the first version stated that sexual relationships between men were prohibited. When Adolf Hitler came to power, this was revised and separated into two parts. This law was then heavily enforced. Sexual relations between two men, as well as male prostitution, were made illegal. Men could even be thrown in jail for hugging each other or even for looking at another man in a sexual way. Because of paragraph 175, hundreds of queer people were sent to prison. Others were sent to concentration camps. The prison sentence was a minimum of 3 months. The treatment they faced was harsh. LGBTQ people were seen as the lowest of the low by the Nazis and by other prisoners.
Were mistreated by other prisoners. How? Due this reason that I stated that I had something with Winnie. Not exactly, but they called me pedal. Pedal it's mean like in German schwul in bad way. Yeah. And therefore I was treated bad. If I were thief, if I were murder, they could accept me, but not this.
In concentration camps, queer people were subjected to inhumane experiments and some of the harshest labor. They were also made the subjects of controversial experiments. These conditions led to the death of many LGBTQ individuals inside the camps. Many were tortured to death. Some prisoners were sodomized by soldiers with broken broomsticks and iron poles. Soldiers would assault prisoners by taking a male and placing their genitals in boiling water. Castration using the radiation of genitalia was another common type of punishment for LGBTQ people. Records indicate that in one camp, gay men were given pink triangles on their chests. These triangles were used as target practice for Nazi soldiers. It was also common for LGBTQ individuals to die by suicide in the camps in an effort to escape the torture. LGBTQ men were 10 times higher than the global inmate population to die by suicide. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis saw the deaths of gay men as protecting the German bloodline by eliminating a moral sin. Gay men were not the only group of LGBTQ individuals who were targeted during the Holocaust. Specifically, there is very little record of the struggles within the lesbian community through the Holocaust. While lesbians were considered sinful, lesbianism was not seen as a threat to the German bloodline. The inherent patriarchy meant because they were women, lesbians were considered too weak and feminine to destabilize the government. The Nazis also believed it was acceptable to rape and force childbirth for all women, including lesbians, to grow the population. Most identified lesbians were prohibited from participating in social and political groups, though some were arrested into the concentration camps as political prisoners. Their more silent suffering means that representation has continued to be lacking in present day. One of the only memorials to lesbians affected by the Holocaust is in Ravensbrück, Germany, the Central Women concentration camp. It was not dedicated until 2022. When the camps were liberated, people were freed in prison and Hitler's laws were redacted with the exception of paragraph 175. This meant that people imprisoned for homosexuality under paragraph 175 were still forced to serve the rest of their punishment and their lifestyles were still punishable by law. Others who were persecuted under Hitler's reign were able to seek compensation. Queer people did not have this right. Because paragraph 175 was not abolished, they were forced to continue to hide their identities to avoid imprisonment. It was not until a 1985 speech by Richard von Weizsäcker that the LGBTQ people were recognized for what they suffered through during the Holocaust. Von Weizsäcker said, "We commemorate the Sinti and the Roman Gypsies, the homosexuals and the mentally ill who were killed, as well as the people who had to die for their religious or political beliefs." Paragraph 175 wasn't officially abolished until 1994. Only in 2002 were the victims pardoned. Compared to other groups targeted in Nazi Germany, this was a significant discrimination against the LGBTQ community. The pink triangle was a symbol used to mark those in camps for homosexuality. The pink triangle has since been reclaimed, and the upside down version of it continues to be used as a symbol of pride in the LGBTQ community. The inverted pink triangle can be seen at pride events all over the world. It is used to show that LGBTQ individuals cannot and will not be erased and they can stand through adversity. LGBTQ people in the Holocaust have not been well represented in historical record, but there are some notable instances in pop culture. For example, Dr. Frankenfurter, the main character of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, identifies as queer. He wears a pink triangle on his lab coat in an iconic scene in which he unveils what he considers the perfect male specimen for a partner that he made all himself.
In just 7 days, oh baby, I can make you a man.
The song Pink Triangle by Weezer is about being in love with a lesbian. The musical Cabaret depicts life in the Kit Kat Club pre-Hitler in Berlin and its queer culture. It shows the fleeting freeness queer people had during the Holocaust and how everything slowly got worse in the outside world.
So, life is disappointing. Forget it. Here, life is beautiful. The girls are beautiful. Even the orchestra is beautiful.
There is a significant lack of recognition for LGBTQ survivors and victims of the Holocaust, so few exhibits, museums, organizations, memorials, and websites exist. Charlotte Apter, an assistant curator of the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust, said in an email, "Unfortunately, there is nothing in our exhibition that speaks directly to the experience of LGBTQ individuals." She even goes on to say that people should consider why other points of views of the Holocaust are missing from the gallery and how museums can do a better job encouraging other people to tell their stories. The lack of representation for LGBTQ people in the Holocaust started from the day the camps were liberated. From being forced to serve continued prison sentences due to paragraph 175 to being left out of Holocaust narratives, museums, and exhibits, LGBTQ victims have yet to receive recognition for their loss. Why is this the case for one group of people? Hate, stigma, misogyny, and patriarchy overtook what was morally right, and this continues to happen today. These often forgotten victim stories are at risk of forever being lost to history. It was and is the responsibility shared among governments and citizens to help ensure that the LGBTQ community, as well as other marginalized groups, are protected. Uncovering the truth is the first step to reconciliation and the restoration of dignity for all. If we don't learn from the past, how can we prevent this from happening again in the future? The wheels of justice seem to turn in slow motion for this group of individuals, all because they are seen as different from the rest. Justice and equality should be given, not something that requires endless fighting to achieve.